Hello, good morning, everyone. Welcome back to Lotus Chat. Today, I have here myself, ZeAnn, and also Jen.
Hi, guys.
Yeah, good. And today we're going to deep dive into our next topic, which is episode 73, Healing Inner Wounds. Ooh, I think this is a really good suggestion, Jen, and I am very keen to hear what you have in mind. And let's kickstart it. What is inner wound? Like, what are they? Tell me more.
This particular topic, I thought of just in general, like different things came up for me when I thought of the words inner wounds. I think it's something we can all relate to. I'm pretty sure all of us have thought about, in our life, those certain wounds that come up
Yeah.
when we are triggered by certain things in our life. And what really is when we say an inner wound? And the way I define inner wound or like core wounds are definitely things that are built over time. Because if you think about it, these wounds, like when we start off as kids and children, we don't really have any quote unquote wounds that are already like,
Mm,
as a result of our experiences, we're free, we are trusting, we feel secure. And it's not until
mm,
something really like big happens in our life that either shows us or tell us that it's otherwise. So it
mm,
makes us feel like a sense of lack of trust or
mm,
a lack of security. And those are what I would define as wounds that end up growing as we go through life. So core wound is like that deep emotional wound that forms from suppressed pain and emotions from significant life events.
mm,
And those particular wounds, like I said, are built over time through experiences with other people,
mm,
with family, friends, loved ones. And, I think that it's important we're talking about it because I feel that as we go through life, those triggers happen. And when
yeah.
those triggers happen, we ask ourselves, why are we so triggered by this? It's because inside, deeply in our psyche, in our hearts, it's because something is reminding us of a past event or a core wound that is now buried in us. So,
Mm.
ZeAnn, what do you think about like when you hear the words core wound or inner wound?
I love how you explained that. Thank you so much, Jen. When you say the word inner wound, I definitely relate to that because when you say that, when we're born, we come out from like a blank slate, we're kind of pure, we don't face anything, but then we go through life, and of course, there are challenges. And I think everyone has their own inner wounds, and it just appears differently. But I also realized that inner wounds is, at least for me, is kind of divided into two, which is the conscious wounds and the subconscious wound. And the reason why I say that, conscious wounds are like things that you are aware. You are aware that this is your wound and it's painful. You may or may not want to scratch it. And then you go into the subconscious wounds, which is things that you're not even aware that it's painful. You didn't know, like you knew it happened, but you did not know that it affects you. And I wanted to bring that home by giving an example of my own inner wounds. As I talk to you more and more since we're episode 73, I'm really comfortable with you. So, I'm happy to share a little bit so that the listeners can relate to it. One of my subconscious wounds that I did not realize that I have was the impact of my parents' divorce. When it happened, I was in my teens, and it was like, teens, life goes on. I've got my friends, the world is big. Yeah, whatever, they don't get along. I just moved on. But then that subconscious wound, which I did not know, that impact, it caught up with me when I was in my college. That's what I meant by it is a subconscious wound. I did not know that incident that happened when I was young, that links to my parents' divorce, has such a huge impact on me until I reached to my college years. Yeah. But how do you know, Jen, if you really have one wound or a couple, how would you know?
And ZeAnn, thank you for sharing such a vulnerable part of, your life with our listeners and our viewers, because I think it's definitely something, like you said, a lot of us can relate to. I myself also, also went through a childhood with parents that are divorced. And when you think about like how do we identify those wounds? Like how do you know you have a wound? Or in many cases you have more than one wound. And
Yeah.
it comes down to, defining them for yourself. Like you said, that sense of awareness that you have, that conscious awareness that you knew certain things in your life happened that changed the entire course of your life, that ended up creating these subconscious, like I mentioned, core wounds in your psyche, in your
Mm,
mind.
mm,
And wounds can like this can be like, for example, certain events that cause the feeling of betrayal, abandonment,
mm,
rejection, fear of intimacy, or even like perceived failure. I mean, at this
yeah.
point there are certain things that can cause that core wound to stick to you. So then when you, let's say, are in a relationship and you're afraid to get close to someone, it's because you have a core wound of a fear of getting too close, because you fear that, the ball's going to drop, something's going to go wrong. If every time I get close to someone, it never works out. That's a core wound developed as a result of the relationships that you may or may not have been around as you grew
Mm,
into adulthood. And not to say that ZeAnn and I are psychologists in any way, but in terms of like what we ourselves have experienced through our, development,
yeah.
and through the courses we've taken, and the awareness that we've been told we
Mm,
need to have in order to get on the other side of those wounds. That is what has helped us really define what we need to do to get from the wound to the healing, which is why we're doing this episode today, because we want to talk about how we can all get on, to the other side of the bridge, to that point where we feel like, oh, the wound is not as apparent anymore. When something triggers it, I feel like, okay, I'm aware,
yeah.
but I know that I can heal this. I know I can feel better in my skin. I know that I don't need to feel like everybody's going to abandon me and leave me. I know I don't have to fear that I can't trust people, or
Mm,
that I'm going to fail because, things haven't worked out. It becomes easier through time. We're not saying that tomorrow we're all going to be healed of our core wounds just by watching one episode or reading one book, but that is why we're here with all of you, our listeners and our viewers, because we want to talk through it with you. And so ZeAnn, as we identify them, and I identified a few, and mine, being very similar to yours, with that fear of like getting too close, and the trust and lack of trust, and even the abandonment issue, which I've really worked on. Since we know that we are in that state where we've had these core wounds,
mm.
how can we get out to the other side? I mean, how really can we go from identifying them to finally figuring out a plan to get us to that healing?
Okay, so I think when we face challenges in life, or then it became a trauma, it's, I would say, normal. I think everyone has, and in some point faces these sort of inner wounds. It's just that it's in different dimension of their life. And I always believe whenever we come across these kind of wounds in our life, we actually have two choices. We have the first choice where we use this inner wound, that's energy. We use the energy from those inner wound to transform. So we put extra energy in areas that we want to succeed. So it could be our studies, it could be, our career, but it requires the energy. So you use the energy to transform. Or you have the second choice where whatever happens to you, then you become the victim mentality, where that wound now overtakes us and that becomes a predominant part of us. And instead of transforming, we kind of spiral down. So it's either we go up or we go down. So it's entirely a choice, I think. And for me, I choose to use those energies to transform, definitely. What about you? What do you do to heal those inner wounds?
See, I'm so glad you said that. It's a choice. And I think in my journey of self-development and coming to the state of awareness, I've realized that that word victim, where I have where there were points in my life where I knew I allowed myself to be in that mentality of victimhood, where I was like, okay, this is you, nothing's ever going to change. No matter what I do, it's always going to end up the same way. No matter how I act, no matter how much I love, it's always going to end up the same way. That type of mentality can be very, it's almost like you're in quicksand. If I could describe how I felt being in that victimhood mentality, it's like being stuck in such a way where I was like, when is it going to change? And it wasn't until I made, like you said, the choice where I was like, I want to change the narrative. I want to change the story of my life from one of being the victim to being the victor of my
Wow,
life.
I love that.
And that's when I started taking these courses. And all of you out there who are listening or watching, I mean, if you've ever felt curious about what it's like being surrounded by people who have been through similar experiences, who are, open to the possibilities of what it's like getting on the other side, these self-development programs are out there for you. I mean, ZeAnn has an incredible one, the Mental Warrior. If you want to learn more about it, we did, Elevated Training Academy. I've done like courses, online courses throughout the last couple of years. And one of the things that I know in terms of a wound that I can tell of you guys out there, not only the one that ZeAnn mentioned, but that the wound of feeling not enough. And that comes and stems from, once I went deep into it, the feeling of being, let down, of not being loved enough as I was growing. So how did I think about, how did I come to a point where I was like, okay, I'm going to heal this? Well, the programs, it was the books I read, it was that awareness, that acknowledgement that I had an issue, that I needed to get to the core and the root. Because when you get to the root of it, that's when you're like, oh my God, I can't believe that that's where this all comes from. And it's like your mind just like, I kid you not, it opened doors that I didn't know existed when I was like, that's where it comes from. And then you also write it down.
Yeah.
You talk it out with yourself. You feel out whatever this core wound is, and you just start like journaling. I know a lot of my friends who get a lot of that out when they journal, and they like connect the dots. It's like connecting the dots to your life and to your core wounds, and also practicing grace with yourself. I know I had to do it when I started acknowledging my wound. I was like, okay, Jen, you can't beat yourself up for the last couple of years of your life where you were like in that quicksand, in that victimhood mentality. Don't, you just keep moving forward, Jen. Keep moving forward. Don't look back. And then, of course, be more mindful when the triggers pop up, because for me, as much as we all work on our wounds and we're like, oh, I'm at a good place, there will be times when the triggers happen and it will kind of take you back to that wound where you're like, ugh, oh my God, do I really want to get close or be in a relationship? Do I really want to commit? Do I really want to take the risk? Because what if something doesn't work out? That's when you know that you're being triggered. And it's kind of like, and you have to kind of, okay, take a moment, Jen. It's okay. This is part of the process. And just take it day by day. And of course, have a very strong or at least a support system, someone you can talk to, a therapist, a counselor, one very close friend who you go to talk through these things. Because again, having a support system when you're trying to heal your core wounds is so important. And I know that I feel very grateful I was surrounded by people who wanted to walk me through the process. But ZeAnn, how about you? What are some, advice you could give to somebody who wants to get through those core wounds?
I think as you speak just now, one thing pop up. I think it's very important that we use those wounds to refine us and not define us. Because why? Let me explain a bit more. When we use those wounds to refine us, we are using those to kind of sharpen our character or to kind of develop that side of, or for me, at least, it was that perseverance, that, that never give up attitude, that, challenges, it's fine. Life is full of challenges. But instead, rather, we don't let those wounds to kind of define who I am. They're not, they're just a part of me. It's a part of my character. So I really want to encourage you guys out there who are probably kind of, you know, stuck or in that mode of you're aware and you want to change. Don't let those wounds define you. You are not those wounds. You are not the accumulation of what happened, but you are the character that comes out of it. So you let those wounds refine you. Yeah.
Oh, ZeAnn, thank you so much for saying that. We are not, I love that. So if you guys want to write this down, I am not defined by my wounds.
Yes.
That is like something that I think would be great to just have on hand. You know, my past does not define me. You know, it shaped you, but it doesn't define you. And that's what I've realized that I've had to think about. Like, my past has shaped me to who I am today. And if I had not gone through those experiences that caused those certain woundings, I might not be who I am today. You know, I realize that I'm stronger, I'm wiser, I'm clearer, I'm definitely, you know, much better equipped. So if
Yes,
certain things
definitely.
happen again, I know how to handle it. But for all of you out there who feel like I'm just starting out and you may feel like I need a plan, please, like, if you need, you know, to talk it through with somebody, if you don't want to talk it through with somebody in your life, reach out to us on the
Yes.
channel. We have so many, you know, great, wonderful women here as resources for you, whether via email or whether, you know, you want to just shoot a comment down in the section below, we'll answer it. But yes, so I'm just really glad we were able to bring this topic to you today. And if anything did resonate, we definitely, you know, hit that like button and, you know, communicate with us about it. If there's any particular thing that just, you know, caused another question, we would love to bring that up in a future Lotus Chat episode. And because we love your ideas. So please reach out to us if there's something you want us to talk about. ZeAnn, do you have any last words for our viewers today and our listeners?
Yes. I also want to encourage some viewers who probably is thinking about this, that, you know, wounds is something that you need to heal multiple times. It is not a one-time affair. It keeps coming up at different situations, at different circumstances, and that's when we have opportunities to heal multiple times. So yeah.
Yes, healing is a process, guys. So don't think you can rush it. Like I said, practice grace, take it one day at a time. And we definitely, you know, like I said, are here for you. So I would like to just thank you all for just listening in and watching us on Lotus Chat Worldwide on YouTube and our Spotify podcast. If you have not checked out our Spotify podcast, please do. We have some great episodes more that talk a lot more about the healing process. I know we've talked about this topic before. So definitely check those out, and we'll be back again soon with another great episode. And we look forward to seeing you then. And we hope you guys take care.
Yeah. Bye.
Bye, guys.